appreciate it. One of the things we really strive to do is we want education to be accessible. And so many of you have taken advantage of our early bird rate. So up until the week prior to our event, we have $15 tickets. And then the week prior to the event, it goes to $25, and then at the door, it jumps to $40. And why such a big jump? Because we want to encourage you to register early so that we can plan and we know how many chairs we have to have and all that kind of fun stuff. So if you want to save a buck, register early. It will help us out. We are looking for some help, and our events committee helps us to pull together our speakers, helps us to decide on topics and choose from our nominations and applications for speakers. So if that's something that interests you, please come find me. Hospitality, obviously, snacks, water, what have you. We all know organizations that have great food services, and if you have them and they would like some exposure to Denver Women of Cannabis and different events we have here, please share that with us. We would be happy to talk to them. We also have membership opportunities. We can share information about that. And obviously, PR. Less marketing, more reaching out to the community. So my ask of everybody is when you see things on social media, if you like them, give us a thumbs up, share it. That's how we grow, and that's how we share a lot of information in addition to email marketing. But social media does the cannabis ban, and I know many of you are familiar with that. You post something, you can have something that has 5 hits, you could have something that has 5,000 hits, and it makes no sense why it goes either way. So we're all in this together, and let's support one another. So about this space is Nuvolution. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Received a grant for this 2,200 square feet of warehouse space at the end of second quarter of this year. We're in the process of converting this into the first ever cannabis community center, and we're building a stage, we're putting up a big screen monitor, fixing the ceiling, all kinds of pretty stuff. So if that is something that you are interested in, if you are passionate about social responsibility or want to get involved with the cannabis community, come talk to us. And lastly, we can't do this without our sponsors, and we want to give a great big shout out to Steep Fuse, to Stash Logics, to Flores Mercantile, and to Weed Wipes. All of those items will be in our raffle after the speakers. So Caroline over here has a silver bucket, and in that bucket we will. Who has the? Here we go. We will pass this around. You can put one business card in there. Do not put a handful in. That's not cool. And then we will do a raffle for these items after the speakers. Next month's topic is the week of 420, and it is about cannabis social responsibility. And it's we will have the ladies from Kind, Colorado speaking, and so we're really excited about that and what we have all come here for. Our panel for entrepreneurial mistakes you don't have to make, and we're a little out of order, but we are going to, Jenny over here is going to be our moderator, and I will have everybody introduce themselves, give them a really quick introduction about who they are, what they do, and why they're here. We have the lovely Rachael, Larissa, Ashley, and Liz. And so I'm going to let Jenny start, introduce, and we'll turn some lights on.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want me to stand up or just sit? Whatever.
Can everybody see the lovely Jenny? We need her to
Sure.
stand. Yeah.
My name is Jenny Germano, and I'm the owner of ICS Consulting Service. Basically, I work in the regulated cannabis as part of
Maybe not.
There you are.
It's kind of moonlighting.
Yeah, so I work in the regulated cannabis sector, so I work with licensed facilities, dispensaries, cultivation facilities, and production facilities, and my arena is compliance and employee training.
Hello, good evening. My name is Rachael Ardanuy. I am an attorney. I have my own law firm called RCA Legal, and I dedicate my career to the cannabis industry. I work with licensed marijuana companies, and also a lot of emerging hemp companies. Used to be mostly marijuana, but hemp has gotten just out of control. So I help on regulatory stuff, setting up business formation, getting people into the business, getting their business started, helping them get all the licenses they need, operating in the industries, helping out when USPS seizes your package, those kinds of issues, employment issues here and there, and then if you want to get out of the industry, selling your business and getting everything ready and prepared and making a smooth transition out of the industry if that's where you are. So I'm happy to be here and I look forward to chatting with you and these ladies.
Hi everybody.
Whoa.
I'm short too. My name is Rachael. I'm founder and executive director of the Cannabis Consumers Coalition, a 501c3 consumer watchdog organization. We're known for helping pass policies such as the pesticide issues that came out years ago. We were the organization that helped expose that, and I work around the world on different policy issues impacting consumers, and right now my big thing is social equity and social consumption, especially here in Colorado. I also just launched a CBD hemp line called Boulevard Hemp Company. That was back in December, and I am in the process of dissolving a company called TCMS Global, where I had a partner and we were a consulting firm that worked both with licensed businesses and ancillary businesses, helping them launch, scale, and exit. I prefer the working one-on-one with consumers, and so that's why I went to this jump. I've been in cannabis for almost 20 years now. I moved here as a medical marijuana refugee in 2001, was part of the team that helped register thousands of patients through the process before there were regulations, and launched one of the first dispensaries, Colorado Compassion Club, in 2005 was when we had our storefront. 2002, 2003 was when we started having meetings and dispensing at the end of meetings. One of them used to be through a church. Sensi Magazine recognized me in the Colorado Industry Pioneer when they launched their Denver magazine, and just been kind of absorbed in this whole space since then. I'm not much taller. It's so amazing to see all of your faces here. This is just like, I love it. My name is Ashley Kingsley. I have been a lifelong entrepreneur, and somehow I found cannabis through my addiction and through some really tough stuff, and it changed my life. And I am a co-founder because of this. I'm a co-founder of a global company called Elementa. We are a global cannabis wellness network for women, and we are dedicated to educating women across the globe about Cannabis 101, whether you're coming to it for the first time or you're returning to it because you can't sleep, because you're menopausal, because you're just pissed. So I am also knee-deep in marketing, digital marketing. I've been consulting in that space for a really long time, but this is where it is for me right now. It's very personal, and I'm honored to sit beside all of you.
Well, thank you. I'm probably the newest entrepreneur in the bunch here, I think. My name is Liz Roberts. I have been in the industry for about 8 years now. After the economy collapsed, my environmental engineering job went with that economy collapse, and I saw this space as a place where I could bring my knowledge and passion about regulatory agencies and understanding regulation, technical writing, those kinds of things into this industry. Also my OSHA training and my OSHA background. So I literally started at a dispensary, at the front desk of a dispensary, and I learned everything I needed to know about marijuana through literally jumping into the fire with both feet. Since then, that was, again, about 8 years ago. At the same time, I also had taken up a position writing for a local newspaper and doing some journalism for a dedicated newspaper. So I kind of wove those two together, worked my way through, worked for a couple of different consulting companies in the last couple of years, some of the big ones in town. Just didn't find I really fit in necessarily there. I'm sure we all know what that feels like. And so stepped out on my own about 6 months ago and started my own company. and so today in 6 months I've gotten 5 clients, and I'm super happy doing what I do, and I consult a little bit of everything from training and education to compliance to we just need somebody to show up and do a quick audit. Like, I am that person, and I'm doing it nationwide now, which is just, it's an incredible thing, and I love bringing knowledge and passion about cannabis to everyone I can.
All right. Thanks, ladies. I mean, 8 years, I don't think you're a newbie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, newbie to the, yes.
I came from the dispensary world too. I worked at dispensaries for 6 years, so I got my start the same way. And I'm sure a lot of people who are plant touching, who work in licensed facilities in here, you can definitely leave that facility and go off and become a consultant and start your own business. That's what I hope for some of these employees. Well, thank you for joining us today. I wanted to kind of poll the audience and see who here works with the plant, like plant touching, license, whether you're hemp or cannabis. Great. And then who here is ancillary, an ancillary business? And then other people that are here, you guys more advocacy, activists? And then who else is just here because you just want to learn and you're trying to maybe thinking about getting in the cannabis or hemp sector? Great. I just wanted to kind of pull so everyone here knows exactly how we're addressing our audience today. So first, we're going to start with basically when you're starting your business, one of the first things that you should think about is the legal side of everything, which means we're going to start with Rachael, because she is our lawyer on the panel, and she's going to start covering setting up a business and for your startup and all the legal things that you should think about.
So, as you know, I'm a lawyer, and so of course I have to say I'm not your lawyer yet. This is not actual legal advice. But, feel free to reach out to me, we could chat. But, so, one thing we talked about when we were discussing how we were going to talk about this evening is sort of the life cycle of a business and setting up your business, and it starts with an idea. And I'm just going to talk sort of briefly from my perspective as an entrepreneur, because I have my own law firm, right? So not just I'm a lawyer, but I'm doing a lot of business owner stuff, marketing, filing my Denver occupational taxes, all the things, hiring, paralegal, those kinds of things. So, I had to do all of this too. It's just that in the cannabis industry, there's a lot of extra layers of regulations, and those regulations change very frequently. And so that's why it's good, I think, to consult with an attorney sort of throughout the life cycle to make sure that you're on top of the regulations if you're getting into the industry, or if you're concerned that there might be something that you're just not sure about. That kind of takes that off of your plate. So, first of all, setting up your business. You have your great idea. Then the idea is figuring out how to best protect your idea. Especially in this industry, there's a lot of novel ideas. And so those are your trade secrets, right? That's your secret sauce. That's what niches you and makes you different than your competition. I'm gonna stand up because I can't see like half the people. Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna bring my paper. Okay, thanks. And so, there's a few things you gotta do at the same time. We're gonna set up your business structure, whether it's a corporation or LLC. You're gonna talk to your CPA on how much money you think you're going to make, what your startup costs are going to be, and sort of establishing what works best for what your plans are, how you want to set your company up. So we, take those steps. We think about your business name. You don't share all of your proprietary secrets with everyone unless you're signing NDAs. Those are kinds of things that you can easily do at a pretty low cost without, to not throw your business away, or there's a lot of people in this industry that want to get into this industry, and not everyone has a lot of integrity, and you don't know that. So it's just a minefield out there, and so you got to protect yourself. Really, that's one of the hardest things to come back from, right, is misplacing your trust, and that's in your personal or your professional life. And so an attorney who has experience in the industry, that's really somebody that you're going to want to at least have a consultation with to make sure you're on the right track. Because some excellent ideas are like $1 million cannabis ideas, and they don't exist yet, or they're happening right now. And some of those ideas are completely illegal at state and federal level, okay? And so the recommendation is, how do we avoid that? Go talk to a lawyer and say, listen, before I get knee deep in negotiations with these people I'm trying to get $1 million out of, what can we do to offer them in the business? You know, what are the regulators going to allow and not allow? Where is this money coming from? Okay, that's a big deal to the regulators, and so let me help you shepherd you through the process, or another cannabis attorney, just somebody who knows that process through the meds, through the local governments, to make it as clean and seamless and easy as possible. Don't worry, we're here for you when you've tried to do it yourself, and now we really need to fix some things, but we're here for the entrepreneurial mistakes you don't have to make, right? Few other things, once you establish your business. Keep good records, keep good books. There's such a thing called piercing the corporate veil. That's a legal term that means you're basically using a business as a front, but it's really just you, and so you don't deserve the protections that setting up a business means, like your limited liability. So in case something happens, maybe you don't have malpractice insurance and something happens, maybe you don't have good consulting insurance and you make a bad recommendation or something, you get a lawsuit for some reason, maybe someone slips and falls at your dispensary, or an employee gets hurt or something like that. Having the right insurance in place, making sure you're operating like a business and it's not just you having your friends over to trim your bud, and then potentially you're in a lawsuit and you could lose your house, right? So, ways to set up your business as a business structure. It's treated like a business. Keep those records, have annual meetings, talk to your lawyer again if you need help with that. Other issues that we come up with in the industry are vendor agreements. There's a lot of relationships between the licensed entities and ancillary companies, or hemp companies and other hemp companies, all the way down the process. I work a lot with helping them get their hemp cultivator license. I also help people get, with their operations when they're doing a manufactured food license or manufacturing hemp down the line, the supply chain. And so there's a lot of agreements between these different layers of companies. And then when you're talking about you make your final product as a hemp company and you're selling it across state lines, and the United States Postal Service calls you, like a client of mine today, then you have to have all of your paperwork in line, going way back to the, where'd that seed come from, and moving all the way forward. So again, the importance of maintaining those business standards, holding yourself out as a business, and that's really on a bigger picture scale, that's what we need in this industry, because we need to normalize this industry, and it needs to be looked at like any other business. And so, having an attorney like any other business, that's something that the cannabis industry deserves. And that's side note, I like teaching other attorneys how to be cannabis attorneys, because we need good, competent attorneys who understand the regulations, and they're not just sort of, used to get people out of jail for marijuana, and now they're a marijuana business attorney. So, there's a thing out there as well. So, so we just talked about setting up the business, having the idea, protecting it, what you're going to do while you're operating, keeping good records, acting as a business. And then, we can talk about, if anyone has questions in terms of getting out, how that happens. But, there's a lot of layers to it. So you want to make sure you build a good team, have, your compliance, consultants on staff, set it up with a CPA, have your lawyer. You want to have your, the dream team around you, so that way you're supported. And then in terms of finances, we can also talk about that in a bit. I don't want to take up too much time, but there's a lot to talk about. So, we have a big tax issue here, so we just talked about it. Call your CPA. Marijuana companies are treated very differently. Insurance, there is insurance available for marijuana companies, for ancillary companies. Rachael Hauser's here. She does marijuana insurance. She's a gem. She's a gem. So if you have an insurance question, she's network with her. And then, like I said, it's too much to get into right this moment. We can talk about it maybe in a bit. But investments and banking, there's a lot going on in our industry right now. Jenny and I were at the NCIA event last night where they were talking about how the Safe Banking Act is getting a full write-up in committee, today? This week?
Yeah.
So it's being considered at the federal level. It's really exciting. I've also heard a bank that services lots of hemp companies just pulled. So, you know, up, down, it's all over the map. But that's why we're pioneers, right? Trying to figure it all out. And then, you know, investing, people, you know, vetting your investors. If you're trying to raise money, making sure you discuss it with an SEC attorney and make sure you're raising money legally, and doing it the right way. And again, that can just be a consultation. That can just be doing your homework, doing some research, networking with folks who know those things and building your network. And so, all of this is to say, you know, these are just the legal and sort of financial things that we all have to deal with our companies, and that, you know, my clients very much deal with all the time, you know, the licensed entities. So, is it a lot? Yes. Do we dream about it? Yes. Is anybody ever off work when you're an entrepreneur? No. But would you have it any other way? No. And so, and that's my spiel. Thank you. And yeah, well, I guess we're moving on. We'll do Q&A at the end.
Yeah, you have plenty of time.
Oh, I do. Okay. How much time?
You only did 8 minutes.
What was I supposed to do? Oh, I got 2 more minutes. How about a Q&A? Anybody have any questions about what I've said so far? That was a lot. It was fast. I'm sorry.
So,
I thought I only had 5. I thought I was over by 3.
5 each topic.
I
Oh, okay.
actually do have a question on finance.
Okay.
The more and more years I've been in this business, and I actually started back when it was just med, the more I'm noticing that due to the competition, due to the environment as a whole, the cannabis industry, dispensaries especially, are moving more along the lines of liquor stores. And they are finding it, especially the smaller mom and pop shops, are finding it increasingly hard to keep their doors open when the state and all of these regulatory agencies require you to have an attorney on call, and they're letting ounces go out the door for $70. How do we get the regulatory agencies to start to realize this isn't a lucrative business?
Right.
This isn't, exactly, you know, we need to be regulated more along the lines of a liquor store.
100%.
Than along the lines
Yeah.
of we're like some multi-million-dollar corporation that's moving millions of dollars around the world every day with
Right.
the SEC compliance attorneys, and yeah.
Right.
I mean, I would really like to start addressing that entire issue.
I am 100% behind you. So let me give you my perspective. Amendment 64 says we are to regulate cannabis like alcohol. That is the constitutional law. That's the law of the land in the state of Colorado. And you're right, the regulators are not embracing that. And I have a few theories as to why. So I represent some MIPS, and I've got, they make edibles, and they, a lot of issues that they face deal with the med really focusing on the child safety aspect of foods and not the food safety aspect of foods for the intended consumer, right? So they say, well, you can't put a safety layer barrier in your product. It has to touch a child-proof container, but that there's no food safety requirements for the child-proof container. So every single person who's eating it, not the accidental child, is subjected to a lack of regulations, I'll even say, to protect the consumer for food safety. And so I really couldn't wrap my mind around that, and I've been having back and forth with folks at the Med for a while about this. I've been working strictly with marijuana businesses since, not as long as you have, since 2015. But I'm at the Med pretty often. I was on a rulemaking committee, and that's part of my allure in this industry is I have good relationships with the regulators and try to work toward, helping them help you, help me, help you, And so I recently went to the Cannabis Law Symposium that was put on by the Colorado Bar Association, and our new U.S. Attorney for the state of Colorado spoke. Jason Dunn, Dunn. I think it's Jason Dunn. Anyway, he's brand new. He's a Trump appointee, and he worked at a big law firm here in Colorado. And he really harped on the child safety stuff too, which again, that's like a virtue. It's the number one thing in the Cole memorandum. Like, we don't want the kids having cannabis. We get it. And so when I heard him really honing in on this issue over and over, and I looked at the faces of the members of the Marijuana Enforcement Division in the room, and again, this is totally me, like my, prediction here, Rachel's prediction. But these messages that the state regulators are getting from the feds is directly affecting these regulations that they're promulgating, regardless of the fact that Amendment 64 says we need to treat it like alcohol. So I think the regulators think they're doing the right thing, and this is what I try to remind everyone too, of my clients and everyone that I speak with, is that the regulators are all new at this too. And frankly, we are the experts, the industry members are the experts, and there's a big disconnect, as everyone here knows, between science and policy, right? They don't understand that if they make a requirement that requires a stamp for a universal symbol to say THC, even though THC doesn't have to be in the product, just has to be something from a retail plant, that actually costs like a $500 million machine in a farm, that a company that's living on margins can't swallow, right? And then that company has to call me and say, Rachel, we don't know what the right regulations are. What do we do? So yes, I mean, this is not a regular business, and this is the cost, unfortunately, of doing business as a trailblazer. And we're trying to talk sense into the regulators. I mean, I really do fight, but a lot of clients, unfortunately, as it's anyone here who's like into advocacy. It's not a high-paying job, right? And so I'm happy to lobby and rally. But I have 2 young children. I have to keep the lights on too, right? So it's tough because it's hard to get a plaintiff. We're going to talk about social consumption. It's a big issue here in the state, and I'm also really, trying hard for, to do as much as I can to support what efforts we have going on right now. But I mean, think about it. We have a constitutional right and literally zero space to exercise a constitutional right. How can that be? A bar can be next to a daycare. Like, we have a lot of hypocrisy going on. But is anyone here from out of state or moved here in the past 5 years?
Yeah.
10 years? I moved here from Florida. The only way I could be a cannabis attorney in Florida a few years back was to be a felony judge, a criminal defense attorney. It is still illegal. I just did a talk back in Florida about hemp and the Farm Bill this weekend. And I introduced myself as Rachel from the future because we really are. And every time we want to pull our hair out about these Byzantine rules, it's like, wait a minute, go to Oklahoma, go somewhere else where it's like this. They don't have the luxury of Colorado problems, So it's all perspective, right? Do what we can. But thank you for being a pioneer, because everyone has to pivot. We talked about pivoting. Like, it's the cha-cha, right? It's all we do all year. All these regulations move and change, and they don't even consider the impact on working people who are trying to just make a living. But anyhow, that's my soapbox.
Thank you. I think going forward, we're just going to save questions to the end so we can stay on track. And then if we have extra time, we'll do questions. And if not, save your questions for the networking part after. I wanted to talk, the next topic we're going to hit is assembling a key team. So now that you've got all your business plans together, all your legal stuff put together, now you start thinking about what kind of team am I going to put together. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was vetting. So I hear horror stories out there from either hemp or cannabis of really bad marriages with businesses and mergers, or maybe I had a client who was building out a production facility and they hired a contractor. Well, in the middle of the project, the contractor just basically bailed on the project and took her money. And I had asked her, did you vet this person? And she was like, no, well, it was kind of a friend of a friend. And so that's where things kind of get this gray area. So if you're starting a business, no matter if you're plant touching or not, you should vet everyone. And what I always recommend is always get 3 bids. So if you're gonna get a general contractor to build out your grow, or if you're gonna be hiring a CPA for your ancillary business, or an accountant or bookkeeper or a lawyer, reach out to 3 different lawyers or reach out to 3 different contractors and get bids, and then get references. So even for my business, I do the same thing. I was interviewing business coaches. Well, I just didn't pick the first business coach. I interviewed 4 business coaches, and I got 3 references from all those business coaches, and damn straight, I called every single reference, and they were shocked. And I'm glad I did, because some of the people actually didn't pick up the phone, the references. One person was like, oh, my business isn't really doing well, and I'm like, that's a red flag. So it's really on me. It's my responsibility. I can't put that responsibility on the people I'm working with. Of course, they have their responsibility, but I'm 100% responsible for myself in my area. That's me when it comes to myself and my business. So please make sure that that you vet anyone that you work with. Even consultants. Consultants have gotten a really bad name out there. Trust me, there are good consultants out there, but vet them and get references. If they're a good consultant, they will have no problem giving you references, professional business references. So working skills. So let's say you're going to be thinking about hiring employees. If you're plant touching, a lot of times I have clients freaking out, like, you know, where am I going to find a really good employee? And I'm always thinking, well, oh my gosh, it's so easy. We have regulated industries all across the United States. And so for me personally, when I was a dispensary manager, I always hired people who worked in a regulated industry. I didn't need someone with the most amazing college degrees or 10 years in cannabis. I can teach anyone cannabis skills, but regulated industry skills is a whole other ball. Like, you have somebody that comes from healthcare. That's a regulated industry. You have someone who worked in manufacturing. A lot of manufacturing facilities, especially out in the Midwest. You know, restaurant industry. I came from the restaurant industry. I worked 23 years there, so I know about food handling practices and food safety and all that. So, and OSHA. So you want to find people who come from a regulated industry to work at your facility or work for your business, because they already have the skill set. And it's, for me, I think it's easy to teach people cannabis, and it's harder to teach a skill set someone's been building for 23 years. So we talked about bids and references. Oh, integrity. I wanted to talk about this for sure in our industry. It's more than talking the talk. You really do have to walk the walk in this industry, and your words and actions mean everything. I see a lot of people who blast all their personal stuff out on Facebook who own businesses, and it's one of my rules. It's one of my rules of the road. My personal Facebook doesn't even matter anymore, because I have 3,000 friends on there, and none of them are really my friends. Like, it's for my business. That's why I have 3,000 friends, because I'm trying to funnel them over to my Facebook page. I don't put personal stuff on there. I post puppy videos, and I share beautiful pictures of the Colorado mountains, or I share about, like, this event on Facebook and events that I'm speaking at, but I don't air my dirty laundry on social media. To me, that's part of having integrity in your business, but also having integrity with the people that you work with. Don't, like, if you give someone your word or you make a promise, don't go back on that. Don't go burn someone or throw them under the bus, because then it could happen to you next. You want to treat people the way that you want to be treated. And even if you do get treated badly, I've worked for so many not fun people in this industry as a dispensary manager. I always took the high road. I always took the high road, because I knew I was serious about building my career. So take the high road and have integrity, and action. Your actions mean everything in this industry. And then last is red flags do not turn green, ever. Red flags are red flags. I talk about this all the time when I'm working with brand new facilities. It's so exciting, because maybe you're starting your hemp company, or your new cannabis company, or even you're an ancillary business, and maybe you were doing marketing in the non-cannabis sector, and now you're like, oh, I'm going to dip into the cannabis side of things for my marketing company. And so sometimes that excitement can give us rose-colored glasses. And then all of a sudden, all you see is all the happy stuff that you're super excited about, but meanwhile, there are all these red flags going on that you didn't happen to catch. And when things go awry with my clients who are starting out, like with the contractor walking out, or she lost her food scientist, I asked her, I said, can you really go back and can you tell me if you saw red flags? She said, I did. I knew they were there, but sometimes we don't trust our gut. Especially women. You guys, we all have that knowing, ladies. You have that knowing and you should go with your gut, because she had a gut feeling and she didn't act on it, and she kind of swept it under the rug a little bit, and then it ended up burning her in the end. So you really have to pay attention to red flags. I know it's so exciting to be in this industry, or cannabis or hemp, but those, I mean, I know you've all been through this. You're like, oh, well, maybe I heard it differently or saw it differently. And then 10 months later, you're like, wow, I really shouldn't have gotten involved with these people. So just take the time and slow down and really just try to say, you know, okay, is there anything out of the ordinary? I have to do it for myself, even with clients. Just because they want to hire me does not mean I'm going to work with them. I don't want to work with people who want to pay me money to come in and audit them and help them get compliant, but then they don't actually do anything. They never take action. I want to work with people who care and who want to be committed to why I'm going to be there to help them, and be committed with the remediation plan that I create for them. So you can edit who your clients are. I know in the beginning it's kind of nice because you're like, I just need to make a profit. But you know, once you get past that hump, you can edit who you work with, or you can do that from the very beginning. It's really your choice. The next topic we're going to talk about, Liz is going to cover communication and consistency.
And really, to just kind of jump off where you were speaking of integrity, I'll step up here.
You can come on up.
And red flags don't turn green. If you see that there's a lack of communication among your team, or the people you're working with, or your consultant, the person who's coming in to build out your contractor, your HVAC guy, the second you see that communication start faltering, that is a red flag. Like, if that person isn't answering your phone calls, or isn't asking, or they give you some sort of wonky response to, you know, the initial contract or whatever that is, you got to really watch the red flags in communication, because that's where you'll see them the most, and that's where those red flags will be the most apparent and the most forewarning. Like, they're the most foreboding, and that's why you also ignore them the most. A lot of times when I work with clients, kind of like what Jenny was talking about, there were times that, you know, I worked with companies that took everyone that walked in the door with a check, you know. They just took on every client. And I said, you need to maybe think about vetting some of these folks, because you don't know who you're getting involved with, and you don't know whose money you're taking. And are we just going to do this? Is this a futile project where we're going to write 7,000 pages of standard operating procedures that is just going to sit on somebody's shelf, and they're never going to put it into place, but now that's their IP, that's their information. So you have to do that too. And when you're a client too, when you walk in and you're looking for a consultant or a lawyer or whatever, the communication flow between you as the person seeking out the professional help, and that professional needs to, you know, come back that way too. So we are responsible for communicating to you as a client and being on top of that. We shouldn't, you know, it's tough when we've got several clients, but you know, we've got to be communicating back to you what you're looking for at the same time. So that's just a little bit about communication. Consistency. Within your company, you have to create consistency. You can't treat one employee one way and the same employee, you know, the employee who does the same exact thing in a different way. You've got to not play favorites. You've got to give everybody equal opportunity in the company. I mean, that's what it's all about. I see more and more people in this, owners that get frustrated with their employees that are frustrated with their owners, because there's no consistency. There's no consistency in what the owner has provided to the employee as being a package, and there's no consistency for the way that the employee shows up for work every day. So, you know, that really, again, with the communication and communicating that consistency needs to be in place, because this industry is what it is. We need to show a professional face to the rest of the world. You can't have employees showing up in an unprofessional way. So you as an owner need to really be consistent about what you expect from your employees. You need to have that written down. We also talked a little bit about, just kind of when we got on the phone for this panel, before this panel, a little bit about oversharing, boundaries, and blurring those professional and personal lines. In this industry, it's very hard. People smoke weed. We smoke weed together. We like smoking weed. We want to talk about weed. And the second that kind of happens, you kind of create this like friendship with your coworkers, and it becomes very personal, and you get interconnected. And sometimes even owners will get very emotionally connected to their employees. And that's not always the healthiest relationship. Again, we got to create that kind of consistency and professionalism to put out there, like, look, yeah, this is it's a fun thing. It's fun, but we really need to do our jobs, and like we need to be professionals when we come into our workplace, and for whatever that means. So you have to have the knowledge, you have to have that background, you have to have the research done. And again, as owners, coming into the space, you've got to be able to lead your employees. You've got to be able to set that professional example. This is a brand new industry. There's a lot of young people in it. It is, I think I heard recently, like one of the number one employees of people under 25 right now is the marijuana industry. I may have heard that stat wrong, but like of the top 5 employers, yeah, the marijuana industry is now number 1 in the states where we have legal. So we're creating a whole new generation that's going to bring legal marijuana to the rest of the nation. There's hundreds of people that move here every day looking for that job, looking for that break, just wanting to learn more. And it's tough when you've got this kind of jaded industry that they're now coming into that's matured, and we're all a little jaded at this point, you know. But you know, you have to kind of keep that professionalism and control of it, especially in the workplace, because it can lead to things like violations. If people are consuming on site or in the parking lots, and you're allowing that to go on because everybody wants to be friends, right? Employer owners, whatever, you all want to be friends. There's a time and a place for that. It's the Christmas party. Yeah. That's it. It's true. It's very true. And you know, there's a time and a place for everybody to come together and smoke weed. It's the Christmas party or whatever corporate party you're putting on, whatever, private houses, that's fine. But you can't continually go around thinking that everybody at work is your friend, because, well, like we talked about, you know, the integrity in this industry is not as high as you want it to be, and people don't show up. People, you know, don't follow through on their commitments, and that can be real heartbreaking and heartaching. But if you show up and you be the best person in that space that you can be, you're gonna progress forward. Whether or not that's with that company or not is another thing. I mean, that may show you that that's not the right company for you, and that it's time to move on. So that's a whole other thing about, you know, that's, you know, when do you break off and start your own thing versus working for somebody else and moving forward that way? Where do you gain your knowledge from, and how you apply it? You know, and there's so much space for all of that in this industry. It's a really exciting industry, and it's gaining more and more momentum. So, yeah.
Awesome, good job. I also wanted to, I love what you said, especially blurring the line with employees. If you own a business, or you're a dispensary manager, or grow manager, or hemp, or it's so it's so hard to not like, okay, let's all smoke together. And the times that I did it, it made my job the most challenging job as a manager. And I was just losing control of my employees, so I just made the rule. I just said, I'm just done. I made the rule, and I had to become the hard ass, and I was not the manager that was going to party with people. I only did it at work type events. And then it was a lot easier to hold the employees accountable. It doesn't matter if you're plant touching or not plant touching. When you start smoking cannabis with your employees, and then you have to go and write them up or implement something, or they're in trouble and you have to come in and have a talk, they could all of a sudden say, oh, well, I thought we were cool, or we had a different relationship. So that's kind of where the line gets blurred. And I mean, for me, it's a personal choice, but it's just something I chose to do after I learned my lesson, and I had trouble just managing the employees after consuming cannabis with them.
Jenny, do you feel like that's, we were talking about the restaurant industry, liquor industry, like bartenders, right? They get to drink with their owners and whatever, and that's totally acceptable. And they know what's expected of them in their position, right?
Yeah,
and they know they can't be drunk at the bar all day long, right?
Yeah.
And there's like an expectation, but I feel like that doesn't happen in this industry. There's something there that's missing.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to figure out exactly what that is.
Well,
because it's
and
not.
restaurant was crazy because people were doing coke and
Many other things.
I was the only like really pot smoker and everyone was snorting coke and I'm like, no, thank you. Yeah, I was one of those chefs that did not need to do coke. I was pretty hyper enough, so yeah, that was.
But yeah, I mean, like it's unique to this industry. I feel like a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd like to just throw one other thing out there. You know, as an attorney, obviously, it's completely unethical for me to discuss legal advice as, you know, being high. So clearly, 100% out of the question in my industry, or else I'd lose my law license. But when you're a business owner and you're getting started as a solopreneur with your hemp company, or as a consultant, or a marketing person, just from a personal perspective, I mean, we live in Colorado. It's legal to get high. You know, it is also a medicine for many folks. And so when you're working on your own and you maybe don't have to go to a 9-to-5 job, you know, setting up your boundaries and your timing for your own business, even if it's not working at a dispensary or something like that, if you're like in one of these ancillary, you know, folks like us, it's like sometimes it's like, well, hey, I can go get a pedicure at 2 in the afternoon because I own my own company and that's what I do. And trust me, I do that. But like, you know, it's a challenge when you want to like really get your business going because your business is your baby and you're building it. You want to get, you know, you want to get clients. You want to get your name out there. But like, you have no boss telling you not to get pedicures and get high in the middle of the afternoon. So like, you know, I'm just, you know, from a personal perspective, like as a woman who, you know, enjoys smoking marijuana at the end of the night, you know, once my kids are asleep and, you know, relaxing and trying not to think about all my clients' matters and things like that and not thinking about, you know, paying my taxes and doing all the business owner stuff is like, that's a big part of your business plan and just something I think that, like, let's just talk about it because, right, it's like we're all, like, let's be honest with each other, right? So, just sort of throwing that out there too, like, don't make the mistake of taking advantage of that freedom because now you're a solopreneur and you kind of derail yourself, right? Or get in the way of yourself because you're having too much fun with it. So, anyway, something to think about.
Good points. Ashley is gonna start talking and sharing with us about the research and development phase of the business. And then as well, her next topic is she's also going to discuss the rules of the road. You're all good.
Sorry about the phone ringing. That was my alarm. I guess I'm supposed to wake up.
Wake up, you're giving a speech.
Oh my gosh. Does anyone are you all too young to remember Field of Dreams? I'm like the old person in the room now. It's so sad. How many of you know Field of Dreams? If you build, they will come.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen.
That was good.
So just so you know, if you build something, it doesn't just. I mean, even if it's weed, I mean, it's amazing. Like you can't. So research and development. If you're first of all, I just want to say, entrepreneurs, it's a sickness because we come back and we keep doing it again and again. I've been doing this for so long, and I've fallen on my face, and I stand up. I feel like it's a sickness, but it's one I love because it's so exciting. And so when you're looking to start and begin, and you have an idea, research. I mean, it's a really good idea just to do the basic, you know, Google research. I have consulted for people that have been shut down because they had an idea, they bought a domain, and then they made a logo and wanted to start a company. It's not enough. You need to really do and develop your research. You need to identify what are you building? What exactly are you going after? What what is your market? Are you making suppositories? It's really, really crucial, I think, in this industry, but pretty much as an entrepreneur starting a company, that you have to figure out what your niche is. There is so much happening 24/7. We are in a constant news loop cycle, and it's closed. So it's 360-degree marketing, right? Nothing is ever off. It's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Snapchat, it's I don't even know anymore. I'm sure there's plenty more. But so you have to know where you belong and what your niche is before just throwing it out there. Now, I didn't do any of that. I just threw it all out there. So I learned from my very big and ginormous mistakes, but I think that's part of being an entrepreneur, and I think that's part of that I won't make them ever again. It taught me a lot. So are there a lot of you in the room that are wanting to start your own business in the cannabis industry? Like, how many of you in this room right now are like, I want to do this? Okay, so one of the things that I feel like we forget in this industry is there's so many resources in place. There's a small business administration. You can go, I forget I'm sorry, I'm losing it. Small Business Association, there's the chamber, thank you. They will guide you in business planning. They will guide you through what is your mission, what is your plan. They will, there's so much rich resources in our communities already that I don't think you have to feel alone. I think you just have to go and ask questions. And there is a lot of resources out there. And, if we talk about avoiding shiny objects, that's so hard in this day and age. We are just constantly like this. I have like text net. Like, how many of you sit in your bed at night scrolling? So there's a lot of shiny objects, and there's a lot of opportunity here. So much opportunity. So what do you do with that? And how do you stay focused? Weed, marijuana, cannabis certainly helps me, but I think what all of you have said is really establishing your boundaries. If you're working from home or with a team, it's working from home as a solopreneur is, I think I heard the statistic, 1% of the population can achieve it. Because most people do well with structure, and that's great. I can't have structure. I can't even structure my day, but somehow I'm a creative, so I get through it. But it is really important. I see so many companies right now saying, hemp, let's go to hemp, right? Because hemp is huge. All these THC companies have been over here doing the THC, and now everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's all about hemp. It's all about CBD. Oh, we need to make this. We have to have a vape pen. It's okay just to be really good at one or two things. I don't think we need a vape. Some of these brands are just exploding and trying to. It's a train wreck. It's not going anywhere. Good, and I think it's really important to avoid that trap of seeing the sexy and thinking that it's not sexy. Do you want me to go stay in your lane?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
That's a good one.
That was my New Year's resolution this year.
Stay in your
That's funny
lane.
that he said that earlier.
So stay in your lane. I disagree with myself on this because I actually wrote that. I feel like if we all stay in our own lane, then we're not collaborating, right? But we all need to stay in our own lane so that we can have our heads down and focus and get stuff done. That's important. But then we're not collaborating. I built a company prior to Elementa and I built it on strategic partnerships. I had no funding, I bootstrapped it, and that's what it's about. It's about like, hey, how are you and I gonna work together? Because we are iron cannabis.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, and how can we all lift each other up and help each other while staying in our own lane? I'm not sure I know the answer, because I'm a big proponent of reaching across, I don't even want to say reaching across the aisle. I'm a big proponent of really working together at all costs. I mean, I have done trade my entire career, and I think that's important. We all have to start somewhere. So staying in your lane, I feel like focus, determination, passion, rigor, dedication, integrity, so huge. But we all should have that in life anyway, right? I mean, like, that should be kind of a life skill, I feel like.
I think there's a flip side to stay in your lane, which is like identify what you're best at and what you want to do and what your ideal client is. And I tell my clients, like, you grow the weed and I do the paperwork. And when you start doing the paperwork and I start growing the weed, like, we're gonna fuck this up. So, like, I'm really good at the paperwork, and like, you're really good at growing the weed, and like, let's just honor each other's strengths and work together, but stay in your lane, right? Know what your strengths are and delegate the rest, because you'll pull your hair out trying to figure it out, right? Taxes, don't do your taxes. You're a CPA? Okay, you can do your taxes. Otherwise, you get where I'm going with this.
You're a CPA, don't grow the weed.
What's that?
You're a CPA.
Don't grow the weed. Right, right, exactly.
So, yes, very, very good point. I mean, really, because you gotta, and again, find your niche, find what you are good at, find what, you know, lights you up. The thing that I do with all my clients, first, you always have to know what your expectations are. When you go into this, what is your exit plan? That is the first question you need to ask yourself. Why am I doing this? It's the 5. Who, what, when, why, where. Why am I doing this? Why am I starting this company? Who am I doing with? Who am I doing it for? These questions are so critical. I feel, I know so many people that don't even know their why, and they're billion-dollar companies. So I'd be okay with that, not knowing my why, but I'm not there yet. So, and burning bridges. I mean, that goes back to integrity.
Yeah.
It's like communication, and also like be an adult. It's really kind of important to just be an adult in this industry, and we're seeing so many young, wonderful people come in and really talented new generation, and that's awesome. But you know, we all have to play in this pot together. So let's make it fun and, you know, clean. Is that it?
Yeah, you're good. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very helpful. So our next topic that we're going to discuss is going to be Larissa, and she's going to go over strategic planning for your business.
Oh, I thought it was risk mitigation is next.
I'm sorry, I was jumped. Oh my gosh, I looked at the wrong section. I meant risk mitigation for your business. I was looking down too far.
I like talking about strategic planning more than risk mitigation because this industry is so high risk. Or you walk out the door and you're operating against federal law, whether you're ancillary because you're supporting that, and there's no one stopping any of these consultants from saying that they're aiding and abetting an illegal market, to trying to find funding, to try to find the people that we're talking about that you can trust, and the lack of integrity. 20 years, almost 18 years solid in this space. I can tell you that integrity is probably the largest thing that we have to worry about. Here, I have to cover so much that I just wrote it all out on the list. I have an outline to an outline. So one of the first problems that we deal with a lot in this space, and one of the most key components to your business, like Ashley was saying, is marketing. You know, you build it, they won't come, so you have to promote your business. Well, whether you're ancillary or plant touching, there's a lot of restrictions. I've never been plant touching. You know, I work with hemp now, but for all these years, well, when I had my dispensary, but it was pre-regulation, so I didn't even have to worry about that, and we had MySpace back then, so the whole social media, internet, all, what have you, wasn't really an option. And those days it was more activism, advocacy, so it was just, everybody was just creating drama anyhow, which they knew the entirety rule back then. So we have a lot of restrictions, and if you're plant touching, then you have even more restrictions, because you have to follow more pharmaceutical guidelines. You can't market to children, you're very restricted to the markets that you can market in, and so it makes advertising very difficult. I have been banned from promoting anything on Facebook no matter what, because my name is just so intricately tied to cannabis that they just deny everything. I could be promoting a law, a change, a new regulation in another state, and they do not let me boost my posts. So you really have to be very creative in how you do that, and that's why creating the you know, what I call like channel marketing and learning how to market with different folks and get your word out there, attending events, you know, just being really creative in how you're marketing yourself. I mean, and I just have a whole list of restrictions I just don't even have time to go over. But, you know, we're even restricted from like Google Ads, and that's how a lot of these companies, or Facebook, or even PR companies, like PR Web, for example, denied me writing a PR for a hemp company once, because hemp hadn't been federally legal yet, and that was banned by Google Ads. So that's where they were going at. So there's just so many restrictions on that. Another thing that's really important with your branding is trademarking and protecting your brand. If you're going to market something out there, especially in this industry, just like Rachel was saying, there's so many good ideas out there. Legally, people will take them. So it's really important to remember to reach out to a patent and trademark attorney or learn it yourself. It's very complicated, but if you come out with an excellent idea or an excellent brand, look into trademarking it. Let's see here. Financial risk. I'm speaking to you right now from I have no bank account right now for a hemp company. I mean, I have no idea what I'm gonna do with money, or where I'm gonna put it, or how I'm gonna pay people, or how I'm gonna do this. It's just banks they'll open your account, and the next day they can shut it down without telling you why. I've had that happen with my nonprofit. I'm a 501c3 educational nonprofit. I should be able to accept money from anybody, but the banks won't house my money because they tell me there's nothing stopping me from taking money from dispensaries, even if I tell them I don't. If I have an event and people are donating cash, and I try to put it, you know, and I'm going to the bank with a big stack of cash, they red flag it, even for a nonprofit. So that's really challenging. And also for ancillary markets. If you're trying to do a marketing company, if you're doing consulting, and you're servicing any plant touching business, banks won't bank you. So it doesn't have to be just plant touching. Regulations, we mentioned this earlier, are extremely costly. What Rachel was talking about with that THC symbol, that broke so many companies, these small mom and pops. You have to be so well capitalized, and a lot of your money is coming from private equity. Institutional investors are not investing in this space yet. That will change once federal regulations and banking comes on board, but until now, a lot of us are relying on friends and family and small-time VC firms and incubators to provide us money. If you're a plant-touching business, inability to write off expenses. 280E restricts you from writing anything that has to do with the sale of marijuana off. So dispensaries are often operating in the red. Looks like these are very lucrative businesses, but they're not. Business insurance. The lady sitting over there, who is you?
Rachel.
You need to become best friends with her. You're going to pay more money to insure any one of your cannabis businesses, whether it's plant touching or not, because again, it's a high-risk industry, and that's how they look at it. But if you don't have insurance, whether, you know, I'm a product manufacturer, if somebody puts my product on their body and they react, I can get sued. I need insurance. If you're a consultant and you're giving bad advice and their project fails, even if it's their fault and they sue you, you may be liable. And you'd be more liable if you don't have insurance. Non-payment from client. Yeah, I can go on and on and on. Just long, short, just realize that you're getting into a high-risk space and plan for it.
How do you do that? And play it.
Ask these two.
sorry, I gotta speed things up because it's 5 minutes per person. So Liz, she's just gonna do a general overview of business compliance, hemp/cannabis. She's gonna talk about consequences and plant touching, and you're free to go, Liz.
So generally, you know, for so many years we separated hemp and cannabis. There's so many little idiosyncrasies around the rules now, and you know what you can do and what you can't do. That's why you call Rachael. But generally, in both hemp and cannabis, we've got some, you know, what the lyrics have talked about. It's a high risk industry. You're coming in, nobody knows. The regulators don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. So we're all kind of figuring this out together. But the problem is there are consequences for doing it wrong, even though we don't know what wrong is. So, you know, the best piece of advice I always give to my clients is never offer up too much information. Like, I'm not a lawyer, but this is something I learned from a lawyer. Like, just keep your mouth shut. Fill out your paperwork, do your thing, talk to your regulator, don't ask too many questions. Get your consultant to ask questions. But the fines themselves will take out companies too. And if you're not doing it right in the first place, and you're not working with the regulators, and you're not working within the regulations, and you don't have an in-house lawyer, or you don't have insurance in place, or you don't have a compliance consultant, or you don't have a metric expert, or whatever, you know, whatever the business needs on hand, you're gonna face fines. And these fines can upwards $100,000 and more, depending on how many things they want to slap you with and what kind of example they want to make out of you. So that's a big thing. Understand that the fines and the closure of the business on the back end, if you didn't do it right from the start, is way worse than the payment that you're going to have to make to a consultant or to a lawyer. And there's a couple other things that's kind of plant touching versus non-plant touching. What I could speak to is anytime you're in plant touching, like, you have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to. You have to. I can't say that enough. Everything from record keeping to you know, having everything in place legally, to having, you know, just your staff trained the right way, everything. And then just kind of reading my notes. Sorry. When you've got your vendors and your ancillary businesses that work with the plant touching industries, everybody needs to be on the same page. Whether that's in record keeping or whatnot, because, you know, your bookkeepers or your CPAs can be taken out, and then what, you know, that's going to reflect upon your business, or they might, you know, have a lack of integrity and they, you know, stop doing what they're supposed to do, or they've given you poor advice. You know, there is so many ways to go wrong in this business. There is no point in not hiring an expert, especially if you're brand new to the space, and we've got, you know, a collective, 60 years, you know, like, experience up here in an industry that's 10 years old. You know, there's so many people out there like us that have that great knowledge base. It's worth it to pay the money up front. Bottom line, it's worth it to pay the money up front, bring the expert onto your team, because you're going to wind up not having to pay those fines on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah, great job. And also, I wanted, I wanted to kind of piggyback on the last section. So, for you're an ancillary company, and let's just say, like, magazine or insurance, like Rachel, our friend Rachael back here that we keep plugging. You should know what sector compliance for the plant touching people that you're helping. You should understand that compliance. So if you're a security company installing cameras, you should understand the compliance around installing cameras. If you're going to be a magazine and someone's going to advertise with you, or they're going to come to you and you're going to do their marketing, all your Facebook stuff, it's your responsibility to understand the rules and regulations on how anything that you do could hurt that client who's a plant touching client. So even though you're not touching the plant, you really should understand at least that genre, that what you're helping, that service that you're giving them, how if you did something out of compliance could affect that plant touching client. So that's just one thing I want ancillary companies to think about. That's just really important.
I swear that's why there's not so many packaging companies.
Yeah.
Is because, like, even when you order it online through Amazon, which is what we were doing, like, in the day, you had to make sure all the certificates were in place to make sure that they were child-proof.
The child resistant certificates.
And then,
yeah.
the big thing was that the companies that came up in packaging and really provided this industry with packaging because they knew their shit when it came to the regulation.
Yep.
And that was a value-added part of the business.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now I can say strategic planning. Larissa. Strategic planning. Here we go.
I actually love strategy. It can be kind of boring, but it's not. This is very critical to your business. This is why you write a business plan. So first I want to cover what a life cycle of your business is. There are 5 stages to your business. There's your launch, and this is where everything is just amazing. It's really stressful, really fast. This is where you have your most energy. Then you have your growth stage, and this is when you start scaling your growth. Your sales are starting to grow, your business is starting to mature, the market is starting to mature that you're in, but you're still requiring debt financing, getting loans out to be able to pay for your business. And then you start going into the shakeout period, which sounds negative, but it's not. This is when your sales are at their peak. This is where your business is getting a lot of notoriety. This is also when it's the most competitive, especially if, in this space, if you're one of the newer to market with your product or your service, other people are going to catch on, and that's actually pretty good because then it kind of validates your business, and then that starts attracting investors. And you're out of debt. Hopefully, you're able to run your business without having any loans, and you can run your business straight from your revenue. Then you go into your maturity, and this is where you're attracting more vendor or investors. You're kind of completely self-funded. You're chugging along. Everything's going great. Then you start hitting the decline, and this is because maybe you haven't changed your product line for a long time. You have to always be willing to change and know when to pivot and know when to add new products and when to take away products and know when to add new services and when to take away those services based on what your market's needs are. You should always be researching your market. This is why having a marketing person is so critical to your business, whether you outsource it or you have it in. You always want to keep innovating. And during that decline is also when you might want to start thinking about exiting. And it's really important when you start your business is to know how you want to end. That leads me to, I'm going to jump down to estate planning. This is something a lot of us overlook in our strategy. When you start a business, you're having a child. What's going to happen to that child should something happen to you? And do you want to die and have your attorney decide who gets all of your assets? Do you want your family fighting each other? Or do you want to make sure that you have a succession plan so that someone is going to be there to take over? There's a lot of legal things that you need to work through within your estate planning, and that's why it's really good to know an attorney. But that would be your will. Your will will cover what's going to happen with your business. I recommend sorting all this stuff out with your family to vet who would be able to take over your business. Not everybody's going to want to take over a cannabis business, Life and disability insurance is really important. And of course, making sure that all involved parties, your lawyers, your business managers, your investors, and your family are all on the same page. When you're working with your business and you're doing all of this, it's really important to have all your agreements in place. That includes loyalty agreements, which are NDAs, and non-competes. It's up to you if you want to have a non-compete or not. I know a lot of people don't like signing those, but an NDA is critical, and they do hold up in court. Don't let anybody tell. I've had people tell me NDAs don't stick, and I'm like, okay, we're not working together. Surprising how many people will say that. And then it's really your documentations also include living documents, and that is a whole litany of documents. But your business plan, that's a living document. That's something that you can continuously change. Bylaws are the same thing. As new laws and regulations come on that impact your business and how your business operations are, you want to be able to include that. Operating agreements, that can be changed too as you start bringing in new investors and new partners. Policies and procedures, as you start expanding your business and bringing in new services or products, that's going to impact your policies and procedures. And of course, back to your will. Phew, I can't believe I just covered all of that. It's like, oh wow, I still have time?
Good, you're 4 minutes.
Okay. Well, anyhow, I can't believe I covered all of that. Did you guys understand what I just said?
Okay. I did. It was amazing.
I just want to piggyback on one thing with the estate planning, especially in this industry. So I was an attorney in Florida before I moved here, and that's the land of estate planning, okay? And so I did a lot of estate planning. That's what I did there. I did estate planning. And so when I started my own firm, that was part part of it is I wanted to bring that part back because I enjoyed that aspect of practicing typical law, non-cannabis law. And like Larissa said, there is a lot of hinky stuff about, number one, do they want to own a marijuana business if you pass away, or if and when you pass away, owning that business. But the other issue is there's a lot of laws and regulations that will not allow potentially someone you want to leave it to leave it to. So there's a lot of hiccups in there, and I don't know if I already mentioned, but I'm doing a presentation in a few weeks to the Women's Estate Planning Council to discuss it. They're estate planners. They deal with typical clients all over the map in terms of their worth and how they want to plan their wealth and plan their legacies. And my takeaway, I'm going to give them a little spiel about what the med regulations say. You have to do a change of ownership within 45 days of someone passing away. Within a month and a half of the owner passing away, you have to do paperwork. So that's why you kind of, another reason why we're, helpful, frustratingly, but having an attorney is a little bit helpful in that regard. But, and I talked about this at New Evolution actually last year, and we talked about how you can grow cannabis here. It's your legal right to do that. And if you care enough to grow cannabis at home, then you clearly care about it. And maybe you want to give cannabis to somebody when you pass away. Maybe it's not just going to go to your wife and kids like a standard will might say that you get off the internet, right? So did you know that there's planning techniques to be able to do that in this state? There are. So things that you want to think about, things that 5 years ago nobody would even admit to the fact that they have grow equipment, let alone wanting to leave it to their buddy and not, the executor just sort of dealt with it, So we can really address those things in your estate plan, but if you go to a typical estate planning attorney, they're not even going to know to ask you about that, about your home grow. So, just remember, we always have that extra layer of cannabis industry until it's considered anything else, which hopefully in our lifetime, but I don't know.
Great. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about was overwhelm. Who here in the audience has ever been overwhelmed? Holy moly! Is that everyone? That's amazing. Well, the good news is it's absolutely normal. I just, getting overwhelmed, being an entrepreneur, even, an employee in this industry, and your plate is full and you wear 1,000 hats, whether you're an employee or your owner, it's totally normal. And I just wanted to share the tips that I use for overwhelm. And structure, Ashley. I love structure, and I'm telling you, structure is my best friend. It really does help me with overwhelm. And let's just say, even if you're opening a business, take those projects and break them down into small steps and tasks and create lists. I work off of a to-do list every day, and I prioritize everything A, B, and C. And I check it off every day, and I've been doing this for about 4 years now, operating my business, because when I don't, I have trouble getting things done. I get overwhelmed, and as we know, when we get overwhelmed, we can check out and shut down. It can be really hard to manage our lives. And I just want to let people know it's just totally normal to be overwhelmed, and there's definitely ways to handle it, because we're all just trying to fill our plates and get all this stuff done. So really just, if you have to find a platform or a software, or an old school like me where I print out a to-do list and I fill it in and go A, B, and C, having everything laid out in steps really does help, because I'm a believer. I'm a person who wants to go for my dreams. And before I got in this industry, a lot of my dreams weren't coming true, and I realized because I wasn't really setting out the goals, writing everything down, and really setting a path forward for myself. And I kind of learned the hard way. And now what I've learned is to really take that structure and break it down into small pieces, because you don't want to try to eat the whole elephant in the room at once. You want to break it down into pieces. So this basically concludes our panel. I just thought overwhelm was a great way to end the panel in case anyone in here was overwhelmed. From Larissa spitting out all that in 5 minutes. That was amazing. But I feel totally privileged to be here tonight, and an honor to be able to moderate in front of all of you, and honored to be on this panel with all these amazing women. And I really appreciate everyone coming tonight. And I'm going to hand it over to the lovely Miss Anne Marie Doyle. Thank you.